Karen never asked. She never knocked. She simply dragged the charging cable from my solar port and plugged her Tesla in like it was her personal gas station. Midnight silence, shattered by the greedy hum of a battery draining my system. And then, fire. A sharp pop, a burst of sparks, and orange flames erupted beneath her hood. The Tesla's sleek body glowed with a hellish shimmer, and smoke twisted into the night sky. Instead of running for safety, Karen turned on me. Her robe whipped in the heat, eyes wild, voice cutting through the crackle of burning plastic. "Evan! This is your doing! You set my car on fire!" Her scream was so sharp it pierced the whole neighborhood. Porch lights flicked on, curtains shifted, and doors opened. Half the street now watched as the HOA president pointed at me like I was a criminal caught red-handed. I stood frozen at the edge of my driveway, the flames reflecting in my glasses, every logical thought drowned by her shrill accusations. I hadn't touched her car. She'd hijacked my grid. She'd overloaded it. And now she wanted me to take the blame. The fire roared louder, hungry, devouring her shiny symbol of status. But to the crowd gathering in the shadows, only Karen's voice carried meaning. "This man is dangerous. He tried to kill me!" And just like that, my peaceful world of numbers, circuits, and stability was shattered, replaced with fire, chaos, and the wrath of a woman who would rather burn the truth than admit it. I live in a quiet house at the end of Willow Creek Drive. To most people, it looks ordinary. Pale siding, a modest front porch, trimmed hedges, and a driveway wide enough for 2 cars. But hidden in plain sight is the part of it I value most, my system. Rows of solar panels crown my roof, angled with precision to catch the most sunlight throughout the year. Their dark glass reflects the sky like a quiet army of sentinels. Every cell, every connection, every bolt was chosen, installed, and calibrated by me. To my neighbors, they're just those shiny things. To me, they're balance, order, stability. By day, they feed my house with clean energy. By night, that energy funnels into a battery bank I built with my own hands, sealed, fireproof, meticulously monitored by sensors and algorithms I coded myself. From there, power flows to my level 2 charger, where my own car, my one indulgence, a silver sedan, rests and feeds in silence while the rest of the neighborhood sleeps. It's not just a system. It's a philosophy. A machine, yes, but one built on the principle that nothing should be wasted, that every action has a reaction, every number a purpose. I don't rely on the grid. I don't beg the power company for scraps. I am self-sufficient, controlled, free. At least I was, until Karen Dunn decided otherwise. Karen is not a quiet person. She's the kind of neighbor who doesn't knock so much as announce herself, a woman who mistakes authority for ownership. She belongs to the house across the cul-de-sac, a sprawling 2-story painted in aggressive beige with flower beds she doesn't water herself. A flagpole in her yard displays the HOA's banner. Her banner, really. Because she is the president of our Homeowners Association, a title she wields like a weapon. To strangers, she's charming. She talks about community and shared values in the same tone a pastor uses to bless a congregation. But to us, the people who live under her thumb, she's a storm in heels. Rules she enforces with zeal against others suddenly bend when she wants them to. Her lawn can go uncut for 2 weeks, but heaven forbid your trash can lingers on the curb past midnight. She'll ticket you. She'll fine you. She'll drag your name through the HOA meeting until you wish you'd never bought property here. And me? I was her favorite target. Why? Because I am not the type she can control. I attend meetings but rarely speak. I keep my property immaculate, my system up to code, and my life orderly. She hates that she can't find fault. She hates that my independence makes her authority irrelevant, and most of all, she hates my solar grid. To Karen, my panels are not my investment, not the product of years of work and expertise. No, according to her, they are a neighborhood asset, a resource we should all be able to share. She said it openly at HOA gatherings, always with that faux smile plastered across her face. After all, she insists, if one of us is prepared, shouldn't we all benefit? Isn't that what community is about? But community, in Karen Dunn's mouth, is a word that means her. She first tested me with words. She'd stop me at the mailbox, lean over conspiratorially, and say things like, "It must feel good knowing your house won't go dark in a storm. Wouldn't it be nice if your neighbors could share in that security?" I would nod politely, but make it clear. My system is private. Paid for by me, built by me, maintained by me. That didn't sit well. Then came the petty escalations. Notes on my door reminding me of community spirit. HOA newsletters featuring articles about sharing resources responsibly. She once cornered me in front of a group of neighbors and said, "Evan, with your engineering skills, you could really be a leader if you just thought less about yourself and more about all of us." The others nodded uneasily. They didn't dare oppose her. After all, Karen Dunn was judge, jury, and executioner in this subdivision. But here's the truth. I am not selfish. I simply believe in boundaries. My panels, my charger, my power, these things are mine. They are not a communal pool for anyone to dip their bucket into. Which is why what she did next was not only invasive, it was war. She started plugging her Tesla into my charger. At first, it was during the day, when I was away consulting for clients. She must have thought I wouldn't notice the surge in my logs. But I noticed. Oh, I always notice. My phone app records every draw, every peak and valley. Her theft wasn't subtle. It was brazen. I confronted her once calmly with data in hand. "Karen," I said, "you can't use my system. It's private property. You need to stop." She laughed. Not sheepishly, not nervously, mockingly. "Oh, Evan," she said, patting my arm like I was a child. "We're all neighbors here. What's yours should be ours. Besides, it's just a little juice for my car. You'll barely miss it." My jaw clenched. Logic failed against entitlement. Facts crumbled against arrogance. That night, I rewrote the code for my system, installing a lockout protocol. Unauthorized use would trigger alarms and shut the port. I thought that would be enough. But Karen Dunn doesn't understand limits. She doesn't respect no. To her, every barrier is an insult, every boundary a challenge. And in her mind, she was entitled to my energy, entitled to everything I had worked for. The stage was set. I was the quiet man in the quiet house, who believed in logic and order. She was the loud woman in the loud house, who thrived on control and chaos. Our battleground was not the lawn or the street. It was the invisible current of electricity, the flow of power itself. And though neither of us admitted it out loud, we both knew. This conflict wasn't about energy. It was about ownership, about pride, about who truly held power in Willow Creek Drive. One of us lived by logic. The other lived by control. And when control collides with logic, sparks are inevitable. The first time Karen plugged her Tesla into my charger openly, without even pretending to ask, I felt something shift in the fabric of my neighborhood life. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of suburban calm where sprinklers tick-ticked across lawns and porch lights blinked on like fireflies one by one. I had just finished recalibrating the inverter's sensors when the hum of a motor drew my attention to the driveway across the cul-de-sac. Her Tesla glided into view, sleek and smug, headlights slicing the dusk. She didn't pull into her own garage. No. She coasted straight across the street and stopped in front of my house as though I had painted a parking space just for her. I stepped outside, arms folded, silent at first. She got out with the confidence of someone stepping onto a stage. Robe exchanged for a tailored blazer and heels, she looked every inch the president she imagined herself to be. Without a glance at me, she dragged the charging cable across my lawn, clicked it into place on her Tesla, and sighed contentedly as though plugging into my system was her God-given right. "This is not a public charging station," I said finally, voice even, deliberate. "This is my house." She turned, lips curling into that smile, the one neighbor's mistake for friendliness, but I recognized as her mask. "Oh, Evan, don't be so dramatic." She waved a manicured hand toward the panels on my roof. "You've got all this energy, more than you'll ever use. What's the harm in sharing a little?" I clenched my jaw. Logic dictated my response. "Because it isn't yours. It's mine. That's how ownership works." Her laugh was light, airy, practiced. "Stealing? That's a very ugly word, Evan. I think this falls under shared resources." There it was, the first cut. She wasn't asking. She wasn't negotiating. She was redefining. In her mind, my system wasn't private property. It was a communal well, and she, as HOA president, was entitled to dip her bucket whenever she pleased. My pulse quickened. She wasn't simply draining watts from my grid. She was draining the principle I lived by. Logic, boundaries, ownership, respect for order. All of it eroded under her entitlement. "You can't just redefine theft," I said sharply. "Words don't bend because you say so." She tilted her head, feigning sympathy, but her eyes glittered with challenge. "Evan, you're brilliant, but you hide behind your machines. You don't understand people. Communities survive because we share. You're hoarding, you're isolating yourself. And honestly," she gestured at her car as the charging indicator blinked to life, "it's not as if this cost you anything. The sun is free, isn't it?" The audacity stole my words for a moment. The sun may be free, but the panels were not. The batteries, the wiring, the algorithms I wrote to balance load, all of it was earned, piece by piece, through sweat and expertise. What she dismissed as free was the result of years of work and sacrifice. "Karen," I said finally, forcing calm, "you've crossed a line. Unplug your car. Now." She didn't move. Instead, she leaned closer, lowering her voice so the neighbors watering lawns or sipping wine on porches couldn't hear. "Do you really want to make this a fight? Think about how it'll look, Evan. The big scary man screaming about a little electricity, while the neighborhood president just tries to keep things fair. Who do you think they'll believe?" The threat was quiet, but it landed like a stone in my chest. She wasn't stealing power because she needed it. She was stealing it because it proved she could. I stepped back, suddenly aware of the weight of watching eyes, the way curtains had shifted across the street, the way silence seemed to thicken. To them, it must have looked like a petty argument about a plug. But I knew, and she knew, that it was bigger. This wasn't about power. It was about control. That night I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed with every kilowatt hour she drained, a reminder that she had trespassed not just on my system, but on my boundaries. I lay awake replaying her words. Shared resources, a neat euphemism for theft. Fairness, her weaponized version of control. By morning I had resolved to stop her. The next day, I rewired the lockout feature, boosting its sensitivity. Unauthorized draws would now trigger an audible alarm loud enough to wake the block. If she wanted to plug in again, she wouldn't get quiet theft. She'd get spectacle. But when I tested it later, standing in the driveway with the sun glaring off the panels, I realized something chilling. Even if the alarm sounded, even if I caught her red-handed in front of the whole neighborhood, she could still spin it. She could still look at the crowd and say, "See? Evan's system is unstable, dangerous, a risk to us all." And they would nod, because most people fear what they don't understand. I had the facts. She had the narrative. And narratives, I realized bitterly, are often stronger than truth. 2 days later, the confrontation escalated. I came home to find her car already tethered to my charger. No hesitation, no pretense. She was seated in a lawn chair on my grass, sipping iced tea, waving cheerfully as if I'd invited her. "Evening, Evan," she called. "Your system's working beautifully. Runs like a dream." I dropped my briefcase, fury simmering beneath my calm exterior. "You're trespassing, and you're stealing." She didn't flinch. She looked up at me with mock innocence. "Stealing again, That word. So harsh." Then she leaned forward, her voice dripping with condescension. "Evan, I'm the president of this HOA. My responsibility is to ensure everyone benefits from what's available. This isn't about you. It's about the community." The brazenness made my vision blur. This wasn't logic. This was gaslighting. She wasn't just taking power. She was trying to convince me I was wrong for resisting. I crouched down so we were eye to eye. "No, this is about boundaries. And you've crossed mine for the last time." Her smile flickered for a second, then returned stronger, sharper. "We'll see," she whispered. Neighbors walked their dogs, children rode bicycles, sprinklers hissed. Life continued around us, oblivious to the war brewing in the current flowing between her car and my charger. That night, lying awake again, I saw it clearly for the first time. This was not a technical problem to be solved with wires and code. This was a human problem, one that logic alone could never fix. Karen wasn't interested in energy. She was interested in dominance. And every time she plugged into my system, she wasn't charging her car. She was draining my authority. It was no longer a question of if we would collide, but when. And when we did, it wouldn't just be sparks from a charging port. It would be fire. If there is one thing I know how to do, it is build a better system. Karen thought plugging into my charger was a game of dominance. To me, it was war, but not the kind fought with shouting or meetings or HOA newsletters. No, this was my battlefield. Circuits, wires, locks, and code. She wanted access? She would find herself playing against a fortress designed by someone who lived for precision. I woke early the next morning, before the neighborhood had shaken off its dreams, and stood in my garage with the charging port staring back at me. Sleek, simple, functional, vulnerable. Karen had exploited its openness. That was my mistake, and in systems design, one rule stands above all others. A vulnerability will always be exploited. The first offense was straightforward, old-fashioned, a lock. Not the flimsy kind that gives neighbors the illusion of security, but a heavy-duty lockbox built from powder-coated steel. I measured twice, cut once, drilled with precision until the charger was sealed inside a rectangular fortress. The front plate slid closed and clamped into place with a keyed lock I could open in seconds, but anyone else would curse at. It wasn't elegant. Not in the way my circuits and algorithms were, but that was the point. It was obvious. A message written in steel, keep out. When I stepped back to admire it, a grim satisfaction settled in my chest. Karen thrived on pretending ignorance. "Oh, I didn't know, Evan." But now there would be no pretending. Anyone who saw this knew the charger wasn't free, wasn't open, wasn't hers. By mid-afternoon, a few neighbors had noticed. I caught one man across the street staring, whispering to his wife as they leaned on their porch railing. They didn't say it aloud, but I knew the thought running through their heads. Evan's gone overboard. He's barricading his power supply. Let them think it. I didn't need their approval. I needed security. The lockbox alone, though, wasn't enough. Karen was not the kind of person deterred by visible barriers. No, she saw them as challenges, obstacles meant to be conquered. I could picture her already, standing in front of the steel case, lips pursed, hands on her hips, muttering, "You can't tell me no." The charger's main line ran from the breaker box, across the attic, and down the wall into the garage. Most homeowners would never bother learning such things, but I had mapped it out the day I installed the system. If Karen ever managed to force her way past the lockbox, or worse, if she found some excuse to convince the HOA board she was entitled to access, I needed a way to cut her off instantly. I spent hours in the attic, crouched among insulation and rafters, splicing into the line with surgical care. The air was hot and dusty, fiberglass itching at my skin, but I barely noticed. My hands moved with certainty, stripping wire, tightening connectors, wrapping each splice in heat-shrink tubing. By the time I finished, a discreet breaker was nestled between joists, hidden from anyone who didn't know exactly where to look. From the outside, the charger still hummed with life. But with a flick of that breaker, the entire line went dead, like cutting oxygen from a flame. Karen could plug in all she wanted. Her Tesla would sit there starving. The beauty of Phase 2 was its invisibility. She wouldn't even know why it failed. To her, it would feel like her victory slipping through her fingers. And for me, it was a quiet reassurance. I was no longer powerless. As I climbed down from the attic, sweat dripping, arms aching, I felt the smallest spark of relief. 2 layers of defense, 2 lines she couldn't cross without resistance. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had shifted from reaction to preparation, but deep down, I knew Karen wouldn't stop. People like her never stop. She didn't want electricity, she wanted control. And if she saw me building walls, she would only dig tunnels, which is why I already had Phase 3 in mind. I stood in the garage that evening, staring at the charger behind its steel shell, and whispered to myself, let her be angry. Let her try something, because the next time she comes, she'll find it's a lot smarter than she is. Locks and breakers could keep Karen out, but they weren't enough. A lock can be broken, a breaker flipped. I needed intelligence. I needed my system to recognize me, and only me, as its master. So I built the 3rd layer, smart access. I gutted the charger's control panel and rewired it to a compact RFID module, the kind used in secure labs and data centers, where a single unauthorized swipe could mean millions lost. A microcontroller, shielded by custom code, turned my once passive charger into a gatekeeper. Now, before a single watt flowed, the system demanded authentication. I set 2 keys, my RFID card and Sarah's phone, synced through a secure app. To anyone else, the charger was just a dead box of metal. To us, it was alive, obedient. The first time I tested it, I tapped my card against the sensor. A soft chime rang and the LED pulsed green. Power surged smoothly, feeding into my car. I killed the connection, then tried without the card. Dead silence. No power, no hum, nothing. I couldn't help but smile. This wasn't just security, it was elegance. Karen could pound on the lockbox, jiggle the cord, even call the police claiming malfunction. It wouldn't matter. Without my card, her Tesla would sit there as useful as a brick. I imagined her fury, the way her face would tighten, the way she'd wave her arms and demand answers. Let her rage, let her scream. She could fight the steel, but she couldn't fight the code. She'd find herself facing not a neighbor she could manipulate, but a system smarter than she was. And yet, I knew even this wouldn't be enough. Because Karen's greatest weapon wasn't force, it was narrative. She could twist events, shape perception, convince others that my fortress was an act of hostility, not defense, which meant I needed one final safeguard, one that didn't just protect me from her, but from her lies. In engineering, truth is not what you claim. Truth is what you can prove. So I built my own black box. I assembled it piece by piece on my workbench, a compact monitoring device, no bigger than a shoebox. Inside, I installed a precision current transformer, a voltage sensor, and a microprocessor with more memory than it should ever need. Every amp drawn, every spike or surge, every timestamp down to the millisecond. It all flowed into encrypted logs, written to both an SD card and a cloud backup I controlled. But it wasn't just passive recording. I added a high-speed contactor capable of cutting power in under 50 milliseconds if the system detected tampering or overload, and a silent alert system, pushing notifications directly to my phone whenever the charger was accessed without approval. I mounted it high on the wall of my garage, wires neatly concealed. From the outside, it looked like just another junction box, but to me it was a witness, an unblinking eye. With this, if Karen ever tried to twist reality, I'd have proof. Time-stamped logs, graphs of current draw, video from my security cameras synced to the data. Evidence not just for me, but for anyone who needed to see the truth. HOA board, police, court. This wasn't just security, it was preservation. Not of power, but of reality itself. That night, as I stood in the garage staring at the charger, I felt something heavy settle in my chest. 4 layers now. Steel, breaker, code, black box. A fortress. My fortress. And yet the weight wasn't relief. It was anticipation. Because I knew Karen. She would not walk away quietly. She thrived on control, on bending the rules to her will. To her, boundaries were insults, and my defenses were not walls, but challenges. I leaned against the workbench, staring at the dim green glow of the RFID reader, and whispered to myself, "Let her be angry. Let her try something. This time she won't be stealing electricity. She'll be exposing herself, because this was no longer about power. It wasn't even about property. It was about the line between truth and lies, order and chaos. She thought she could rewrite the rules. But my system, my black box, my evidence, these would hold steady. Karen Dunn wanted a war. Fine. But wars aren't won by shouting. They're won by preparation, and my system was prepared for her. The garage was silent except for the faint hum of electronics. My black box sat steady, its LEDs glowing like watchful eyes. For weeks, my fortress had stood unchallenged. Karen hadn't returned, not once. No midnight plugging, no bold speeches on community resources. It was almost disappointing. But wars with people like her don't end with silence. They simmer, they bide, and then they erupt. At 2:13 a.m., my phone vibrated on the nightstand. Unauthorized access attempt. I bolted upright, adrenaline surging. Another alert followed, sharper, almost frantic. External device detected. Unsafe parameters. I slipped into my slippers and checked the live feed. The camera image resolved. Karen Dunn, dressed in dark clothes, hood pulled up, crouched like a thief in my driveway. She wasn't at the charger this time. She had something else, an adapter, cheap and clumsy. The kind you buy from a knockoff site with fake safety marks. She was plugging into my 120V outdoor utility outlet, the one tucked under the eaves. It wasn't part of the main system. It wasn't protected, and she knew it. Damn it, I muttered. Karen fumbled with the thick cord, forcing the adapter's prongs into the socket, ignoring how it bent slightly under the strain. On the camera feed, I saw her glance around, paranoid, then shove the plug home. For a moment, her Tesla's port glowed faintly blue. She smirked. Then it happened. A sudden snap, sharp as a gunshot. The screen flared with light. Arcs of electricity leapt from the socket. Sizzling like angry serpents, Karen screamed as smoke burst from the outlet, curling black against the pale siding of my house. Sparks danced along the cable, snaking toward the charging port. My heart slammed against my ribs. I whispered the rules drilled into me during safety training. That is an electrical fire. You do not use water. You act. I grabbed the Class C fire extinguisher mounted by the garage door and sprinted outside. The air reeked of ozone and burning plastic. Karen stumbled back, shielding her face, but instead of retreating, she yelled at me. You sabotaged my car. I didn't answer. I aimed the extinguisher, yanked the pin, and squeezed. A plume of dry chemical burst forth, smothering the arcs. The hiss filled the night as the sparks fizzled, the glow fading to gray smoke. Her Tesla, scorched around the port, sat hissing like a wounded animal. The danger was over. But Karen was not finished. She rounded on me, face red, eyes wild. You did this! You rigged the outlet to fry my car. You're insane, I snapped. Your illegal adapter caused the short. I saw it on camera. Lies, she screamed, stepping closer, jabbing a finger at me. You've been plotting against me for months, setting traps. Everyone will know you tried to kill me. Her words carried into the neighborhood. Porch lights flicked on. Curtains shifted. Neighbors peeked out, drawn by the commotion. Perfect. Witnesses to her madness. But then, the twist. Karen's eyes darted to the side, catching the faint glow of the black box inside my garage. My evidence, my proof. Before I realized her intent, she lunged past me, darting into the open garage. Hey! I shouted, chasing after her. She yanked the black box off the wall with surprising strength, cables snapping loose. She clawed open the panel, fumbling with trembling hands until her fingers closed on the SD card slotted inside. No! I roared, sprinting forward. She tore the card free, held it aloft like a trophy, and bolted out the back door of the garage, into the night. And just like that, the war turned into a chase. The neighborhood became a battlefield of shadows and fences. Karen ran with surprising speed, her hood flapping, clutching the tiny card like it was salvation. Give it back! I shouted, vaulting over a low hedge. She scrambled through a neighbor's yard, knocking over a lawn chair. A dog barked furiously from behind a fence. I pushed harder, breath burning in my lungs. The SD card was everything. Without it, her story could twist into reality. Karen ducked into another yard, her silhouette framed against the dim light of a porch. She stumbled, caught herself, and kept going. Stop, Karen! This is breaking and entering now! You'll bury yourself! She laughed, high-pitched and ragged. No, Evan! You'll be the one buried! When the HOA hears my story, when the cops come, they'll believe me. I have your evidence right here! She waved the card mockingly, her voice echoing. I clenched my teeth and pushed harder. We cut through a narrow alley between two houses, barely wide enough for a person. The gravel crunched beneath our feet. Ahead, she tried to scale a chain-link fence. Her foot slipped. I closed the distance. I lunged, grabbing her wrist. We struggled, grunting, the card inches from slipping between her fingers. She clawed at me with her free hand, scratching my arm. "You can't stop me!" she shrieked. I twisted, prying her hand open. The SD card tumbled free, falling toward the ground. Time slowed. Both of us dove. My fingers closed around it first, pressing it tight against my palm. Triumph surged through me, then pain. She slammed her shoulder into me, knocking me back. I hit the ground hard, air whooshing from my lungs, but I didn't let go. I rolled, scrambling to my feet, clutching the card like a lifeline. Karen stood a few feet away, chest heaving, face twisted with fury. She looked less like an HOA president and more like a cornered predator. "You think this ends tonight?" she hissed. "I'll ruin you, Evan, with or without that card." I held her gaze, steady despite the adrenaline roaring in my veins. "No, Karen, tonight you ruined yourself." Neighbors were gathering now, phones out, recording. The evidence wasn't just in my hand anymore. It was all around us. Witnesses, cameras, truth. Karen's bravado cracked. Her eyes darted to the phones, the faces staring at her. For the first time, she looked small, and I realized the climax wasn't the fire or the chase. It was this. The moment the Queen of Control realized her kingdom was gone. The night ended with flashing lights. Police cars, an engine crew to inspect the scorched outlet, neighbors whispering in clusters. Karen sat on the curb, wrapped in a blanket, silent now. Her Tesla smoked faintly, a charred reminder of her recklessness. I handed the SD card to the officer, explaining what it contained. Logs, timestamps, video, all of it. When I finally returned to my house, exhausted and shaken, I glanced at the blackened outlet, the scattered cord. And I thought, a system is either stable or it is not. Tonight proved mine was strong, and hers was fire waiting to happen. The red and blue wash of police lights painted the cul-de-sac like a stage. Engines idled low, radios crackled, and the smell of scorched plastic still lingered in the air. My neighbors clustered on their porches, pajama-clad silhouettes against the glow, whispering, filming, waiting. Karen Dunn sat on the curb, her Tesla smoldering behind her like a monument to arrogance. She clutched her blanket around her shoulders, hair wild, face streaked with smoke and fury. The first deputy strode over, tall, calm, professional. His flashlight beam cut across the driveway before landing squarely on me. "Sir, are you the homeowner?" "Yes. My name is Evan Shaw," I said, steadying my voice though my pulse still raced. "This is my house. And that," I pointed at the mangled outlet, "was caused by her." Karen jumped up, voice cracking as she pointed at me like a prosecutor. "He's lying! He tried to burn my car. He set up traps. He's been stalking me, harassing me. He's dangerous." The deputy didn't flinch. "Ma'am, take a breath." "She's been stealing my power for weeks," I shot back, the exhaustion sharpening my words. "Tonight she broke into my property with a bootleg adapter. It overloaded the outlet. I put out the fire myself," Karen gasped, clutching her chest in exaggerated disbelief. "Bootleg adapter? That's ridiculous! He sabotaged it, and then he tried to kill me when I caught him." The deputy's eyes narrowed. He didn't like stories, he liked evidence. "We'll sort it out." "Ma'am, step forward, please." Karen obeyed, still trembling with fake frailty. But as she moved, I noticed something, the tightness of her right fist. The deputy noticed too. "Ma'am," he said, voice dropping into command. "Open your hand." Karen froze. Her fingers twitched, clutching tighter. "It's nothing, just nerves." "Open it," he repeated. She shook her head violently. "No, you don't understand. He'll twist it." The second officer moved in. "Ma'am, don't make this harder." For a long, trembling moment, Karen resisted. Then with a sob, she unfurled her fingers. There it was, the SD card, the beating heart of my black box, the one she had ripped from its casing and tried to flee with. The deputy plucked it from her palm, holding it up to the light. "What's this, ma'am?" Karen stammered. He gave it to me. "To destroy evidence of what he did." My laugh broke out, sharp, bitter. "Evidence of what you did, Karen." The deputy pocketed the card carefully. His tone shifted. Colder now, more formal. "Ma'am, you're being detained for tampering with private property and potential evidence," Karen shrieked, stumbling back. No, I'm the victim here." But the shift had begun. The neighbors who'd been quiet until now started speaking. Mrs. Gable, the sweet woman from across the street, stepped forward, robe pulled tight around her. "Officer, I have video." My porch camera caught her plugging in that adapter. It sparked and she screamed. "Evan didn't do a thing. He was inside until the fire." Another voice chimed in. "Tommy, the college kid 2 doors down." He held up his phone, screen glowing. "I've got footage, too. She came through my yard running with that black box in her arms. Look." The deputy took one glance at the shaky video, and his face told the story. Karen's narrative was unraveling fast. "She's trespassed here before," Mrs. Gable added firmly. "Always after dark, plugging that car into his system. We all talked about it. We knew it wasn't right." Karen's head whipped around, eyes wild, betrayal etched across her face. You're all against me. This whole street is conspiring." The deputy ignored her. He slipped the SD card into an evidence bag, labeled it, and handed it to the officer by the cruiser. "We'll check this against the statements and footage." He turned back to me. "Sir, do you have security footage of tonight?" "Yes," I said. The black box was recording until she yanked the card. "But I've got cloud backups." Karen let out a guttural sound, somewhere between a growl and a sob. "He's lying. He fakes those logs, I know it." The deputy's voice was iron now. "Ma'am, enough." The officers began collecting devices, footage, and statements. Neighbors who once stayed neutral now came forward, phones in hand, eager to share. One by one, the clips played on a tablet under the harsh beam of a flashlight. A montage of guilt unfolded, Karen creeping into my driveway at night, plugging in without permission, sparks flying as her adapter overloaded the outlet, me rushing out with a fire extinguisher, dousing the flames while she shouted accusations, her darting into my garage, yanking out the black box, running through yards, clutching the evidence like loot. It wasn't just one angle. It was a dozen. Different porches, different cameras, each confirming the others. The deputy looked up at her, his expression now one of certainty. "Ma'am, the truth is about to come out from a dozen porch cameras." "It's over," Karen broke then. Her knees gave out, and she sank to the curb, shaking her head in denial. No, you don't understand. I'm the president. I make the rules. This is my community. I decide what's fair." The deputy crouched to meet her eyes, his tone low, steady. "Not tonight, ma'am. Tonight, the evidence decides." I stood back, heart still hammering, but for the first time in weeks, relief seeped through the adrenaline. The fortress I built had held, not because it stopped her from attacking, but because it preserved the truth when she did. The officers cuffed her gently but firmly. She wailed, cursed, tried to twist free, but there was no more audience to convince. The neighbors' faces were hard, their phones still raised. The Queen had no kingdom left. As they guided her toward the cruiser, Karen locked eyes with me. Hatred burned there, but beneath it, fear. For the first time, she realized she couldn't win. Not here. Not against proof. The deputy handed me a copy of the incident report number. We'll need formal statements from you tomorrow, Mr. Shaw, but between the SD card and all this footage, it's very clear what happened. He paused, his gaze steady. You did good tonight acting fast with the fire. That probably saved her car and your house. I nodded, though the praise felt heavy. I didn't do it for her. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Doesn't matter why, he said simply. It matters that you did. The cruiser pulled away, Karen's screams muffled by the glass. One by one, neighbors drifted back into their homes, the night reclaiming its silence. Mrs. Gable lingered, patting my arm. You did the right thing, Evan. She's been trouble for too long. Tommy gave me a thumbs up. Man, that was like a movie. You chased her through the yards. Epic. I managed a tired smile. Let's hope the sequel never happens. When I finally closed the garage, the smell of chemical fire suppressant still clung to the air. My black box casing lay on the floor, cables ripped, but the system wasn't broken. The truth had survived. I placed the replacement SD card in the slot, reset the logs, and whispered to the blinking LEDs, back to work. We're not done yet. Because with Karen done, I knew one thing. Battles might end. Wars don't. But tonight belonged to order, not chaos. To evidence, not lies. To truth. It started small. A whisper among the neighbors. A story carried over fences and front lawns. But soon it grew louder. The police report, the porch camera footage, the scorched Tesla still parked in Karen's driveway like a burned idol. It was impossible to ignore. By the end of the week, I got a call from a producer at Channel 7. Mr. Shaw, we're running an On Your Side segment about your HOA dispute. Would you be willing to go on record? I hesitated. I had no taste for fame, but truth thrives in light. Yes, I said. On one condition, you show everything. Every permit, every log, every shred of evidence. And so they did. The broadcast aired on a Friday evening, just as families settled in for dinner. The anchor's voice was steady, neutral, but the story was anything but ordinary. A local homeowner says his HOA president illegally tapped into his private solar system to charge her car, and when caught, she blamed him. Tonight, we bring you the footage, the logs, and the neighborhood voices that tell the full story. The screen cut between clips. My black box logs scrolling with precise timestamps. Karen sneaking into my driveway under the cover of night. The sparks as her adapter caught fire. Then came the neighbors' testimonies. Mrs. Gable's calm certainty. Tommy's shaky video of her sprinting through yards with the stolen evidence. And then, me, sitting in my garage, hands folded, speaking slowly into the camera. This wasn't about power. It was about boundaries, about truth. A system is either stable or it is not, and lies are never stable. The comments poured in online before the segment ended. HOA President caught red-handed. Finally, someone stands up to these bullies. That man deserves a medal. By the weekend, public opinion had shifted like a tide. Karen Dunn wasn't a leader anymore. She was a cautionary tale. The HOA board gathered in the community center that Monday night. Usually, these meetings drew a sparse handful of residents. That night, every chair was full. People stood in the back, arms crossed, whispering, waiting. Karen sat at the head of the table, defiant despite the storm around her. She wore a blazer, makeup carefully reapplied, hair pulled back tight. But her eyes darted nervously, scanning the room as if calculating allies. I carried a laptop and a small projector. As I set them on the table, the room hushed. Karen cleared her throat. Before we begin, I want to address the falsehoods being spread about me. Certain individuals have... I pressed a key. The projector came to life. On the wall behind me, the first clip played, Karen, hunched in the dark, plugging her Tesla into my outlet. Gasps rippled through the room. Next, the sparks, the smoke, her face twisted in anger as I put out the flames. Murmurs rose louder. Then, the footage of her ripping the black box from my garage and sprinting through backyards. The room erupted in whispers and disbelief. Finally, I played the compilation, logs from my system, synced with timestamps, proving the power theft, the unauthorized access, the precise moment of the fire. When the screen went dark, silence hung thick. Karen rose, voice trembling but fierce. This is taken out of context. He manipulated this footage. He's obsessed with me, stalking me, trying to destroy my reputation. But the board wasn't listening. The neighbors weren't listening. The truth was too clear. Mr. Alvarez, the treasurer, spoke first. His voice was flat, final. Karen, you endangered property, violated trust, and lied to this board. Mrs. Lee, the secretary, added, we cannot have a president who abuses authority and then blames others. A motion was called. Hands went up, one after another. Unanimous, Karen Dunn was removed as president of the HOA. But I wasn't finished. I stood steady and said, I've spent thousands of dollars protecting my system from abuse. I've endured harassment, false accusations, and danger to my home. I demand restitution for damages and protection from further retaliation. The room supported me. Neighbors spoke in unison. He deserves it. He's right, the board agreed. Funds misused under Karen's leadership would be redirected to repair my system. Karen herself was ordered through civil claim to pay damages for the fire. But the final strike came in court later that week. With the evidence in hand, my lawyer filed for a restraining order. The judge, after reviewing the logs, videos, and police reports, granted it without hesitation. Karen Dunn was legally barred from coming within 500 feet of my home or contacting me in any form. When I returned home after the court hearing, Sarah hugged me in the driveway, relief flooding her face. The fortress had held. The lies had crumbled. Later that night, I sat alone in my garage, staring at the quiet hum of my system. The RFID reader blinked softly. The new SD card ticked away data. The black box stood whole again. The war was over, and the lesson was written clear as circuitry. Boundaries matter. Systems matter. Truth matters. Karen thought she could rewrite the rules, bend reality, make theft into sharing. But truth is not a story you spin. It is data, evidence, stability, and stability always wins. Don't let injustice go unnoticed. Subscribe to HOA Truth Tales and hit the bell to uncover the real stories behind HOA drama, tyranny, and neighborhood battles. If you've ever faced a bully in your community, comment below. We want to hear your story. Every like, share, and comment helps shine a light on the truth, and every subscriber joins the fight against unfair HOA rules. Stay tuned, because the next shocking story could be happening right in your neighborhood.